For more than 30 years, rival engineers and planners battled over what came to be called the Invisible Bridge, the Foreshore Freeway Flyover. By the early 20th century, Cape Town was one of the most important ports and cities in South Africa. But this led to decades of conflict over the Foreshore Freeway.
Demonstrations against the South African government's strict apartheid policies flare into shocking violence.
Dr. Lisa Kane is a road engineering sociologist who has studied the complex history of the bridge that never was.
So we're here on the unfinished part of the freeways, and you can see it's right smack bang in the center of Cape Town. Ahead of us, we've got the port, and just in that distance, we've got the other part of the freeway that's also incomplete. And this whole area from the port until just beyond these high-rises, it's part of the foreshore, and that's really where this story begins.
The foreshore area of Cape Town is 480 acres of land, reclaimed from the sea. To incorporate it into the city, a new road layout was needed. And that's where the problems started.
There were two main parties that were interested in this land. One was the city itself, and one was the Port Authority. The city of Cape Town, they had this vision that when Europeans arrived by cruise ship at the port, they would have this monumental entrance. It would be like a gateway to Africa.
The port authorities wanted a functional layout to move traffic. But the city had something much more elaborate in mind.
In the city of Cape Town, they turned to France, and they brought in an architect called Baudouin, and he'd been involved in the planning and development of Paris, which was really famous at the time. He came up with a scheme which was very much based on Parisian planning, with these beautiful boulevards going from east to west, north to south, very much a rectilinear grid type plan.
The port authorities preferred function over form and rejected the French-inspired plan. The outbreak of World War II caused the whole matter to be shelved. When it was over, the two sides were expecting to finally settle the matter. But now a third vision of Cape Town's future came into play.
Throughout history, there are bucket loads of examples in civil engineering where the final outcome is a compromise between maybe function and form. And often what you end up with is something pretty boring or enormously elaborate. But there are so many stakeholders in these kind of projects that it's never one person's decision at the end of the day.
At long last, it seemed that a decision had finally been reached, and work on the Foreshore Freeway could finally go ahead.
The reason why the freeway was styled the way it was not obvious to most. It was styled as this huge sort of freeway, Autobahn in Cape Town, because that is what the lobbyists, the US car manufacturers wanted, not only in Cape Town, but all around the world. Big motorways that will be filled with big Buicks, big Chevys, big American cars.
Over 20 years of wrangling, the plan, which more or less looks like what we have today, was developed in 1963. Finally, in the late 1960s, some of the construction actually began.
After a 20-year wait, Cape Town would finally have a modern traffic system. But everyone had forgotten one thing: public opinion.
From a commercial perspective, you can totally understand the Port of Cape Town needing this great big piece of infrastructure to get goods and people in and out as efficiently and as fast as possible. But from a local resident's perspective, you can totally understand resistance to it. Just living in the shadow of this great big freeway the whole time, it's bound to have an effect on that local community. And I can definitely understand there being significant resistance, as anyone would.
Now, South African politics began to impact on the Foreshore Freeway. Apartheid laws enforcing racial segregation led to the clearance of an ethnically diverse area called District 6 in Cape Town.
In South Africa, native protests flared against apartheid and passbook law. 100 died when police fired on demonstrators at Sharpeville.
The South African apartheid government chose not to complete the bridge and not to spend those funds on the freeway, but rather to relocate a multi-ethnic community that was in the heart of prime central Cape Town to someplace less important. It was all about focus, it was all about funds.
Work went ahead slowly until all that was missing were the elevated sections of the roadway. But with the end in sight, work came to a halt in the early 1970s.
There are a couple of theories why the freeway was never completed and left just suspended in air like you see it today. One is that there's a shopkeeper whose property was right in the critical path of the bridge. He wouldn't sell. The other theory, which I really like, is that the engineer who designed the whole thing realized the two ends of the bridge would never meet.
The idea that the invisible bridge is there because the engineer in charge miscalculated and the two ends of the road weren't going to quite meet up, in my mind, doesn't really stand up. On a project of that scale, with that much investment, that's never going to happen. You're never going to start construction. There'll be so many boxes to tick, so many brains looking at this, it's never going to happen.
Ever since, the two ends of the Foreshore Freeway have been waiting for the missing section to be installed. Cape Town's inventive citizens have found a variety of uses for the concrete white elephant.
The aborted freeway has been used for many artistic endeavors since it was abandoned. Movie sets, supermodel shoots, that kind of thing. But perhaps the most innovative is it was used as the set for the 2010 Football World Cup.
Never has early morning gridlock looked more like a fiesta than for the face-off between Mexico and South Africa.
These giant horns that you hear in the stadium, they had a huge one mounted right there, but it was so loud. People were claiming they had heart attacks and there were traffic accidents, so the whole thing had to be abandoned.
The city authorities have tried again and again to come up with a solution to the Foreshore Freeway problem.
Although people think of it as an eyesore, for me, having researched the history, it really talks about the struggles of Cape Town and of South Africa.
You can knock it down, but that's costly and dangerous. Or you might follow suit of what they did in New York with the New York High Line. There you have gardens and cafes, and it's a real tourist site, so that's probably the best idea.